Automakers reporting modest sales growth. GM reporting its best quarterly sales in more than 3 years. Tesla seeing sales fall less than expected for the second quarter. However, looking to the second half of the year, the road ahead for automakers may be a rocky one. Cox Automotive executive analyst and senior director of economic and industry insights, Erin Keating, joins us now to discuss. Erin, it's good to see you. So maybe, Erin, start big picture. You know, we did just hear, as we mentioned, from GM and Ford and Tesla, just the 30,000-foot view, Erin, when you look at the U.S. auto industry, how healthy, how strong does it look to you?
You know, I think we actually have to put it in perspective, and so far, I think we're seeing a pretty good year. We all knew that the uncertainty with the election, the climate, the interest rates keeping at high levels, that we were going to be seeing potentially a slow growth this year. Certainly the CDK outage in June didn't necessarily help us. The fact that the OEMs or the automakers have not come in with really high incentives like they were in the pre-pandemic, I think we're doing pretty well.
What are margins looking like? We're talking about increased incentives here. We know that the automakers like to provide a little juice for the customers from time to time. How are margins faring?
So admittedly, in Cox Automotive, we don't get terribly deep into the financials of the automakers. But again, we're seeing them starting to loosen some of the financial space they have on the cars as they try to move more metal off the parking lot. So we are anticipating that we'll see some more incentives coming forward. There's a lot of rate subvention that's having to happen right now because of the high interest rates. So we're hoping that they'll be able to give a little bit more of this back. It may come a little bit from the dealer's margin and a little bit of sharing from the automakers' margin as well.
Erin, let's talk about a trend we discussed a lot here. EV sales growth, Erin,
Sure.
Not what it used to be. I'm interested in the reasons you see for that, Erin, and what you think it would take to kind of jumpstart that.
Well, I think, you know, what we have to remember is that some of the decline, or a lot of the decline, is actually coming out of Tesla's share. They were primarily the biggest competitor in the market, the only competitor in the market for a long time outside of Nissan and Chevy. But we see a lot more competitors coming in with some really compelling product, as well as good incentives and, of course, the tax credit. So I don't see that we say EV demand is completely falling off a cliff or anything. It's normalizing. And so as we see Tesla start to drop share, that's not alarming around the entire message for EVs, because the rest of the brands are actually starting to really lift in their EV sales. So while we may not be at 10% this year, we're going to hit awfully close to it. More hybrids are being sold, more PHEVs are being sold. This is all good for the transition to fully electrified vehicles in the future. So I'd say that we're still on a path to getting to an electrified future. It's just going to take us a little bit longer. And we're really excited about the fact that we finally have some additional players in the market providing some really good options for consumers.
Let's talk about some of those players in the market right now.
Sure.
I was just looking at the Wi-Fi Interactive. I know you don't comment on stock prices, but what I'm going to show illustrates the big versus the small. This is a year-to-date performance for a bunch of EV stocks, and Tesla just became positive today, actually, but GM is up 30%, Toyota is up 12%, BYD is up 9%, and then a lot of the smaller players in EV just are not doing it. Rivian down 37%, Lucid Motors down 30%. Admittedly, China's its own story, but what do you think the difference is between some of the outperformance of these big guys versus the little guys?
I think it's precisely that, a story of the big guys versus the little guys. I do think that we anticipate Rivian starting to get a little bit more under its feet, especially with its new tie-up with Volkswagen. And I do think that the automotive market will have to balance itself out. I mean, a lot of people forget that at the beginning of the last century, I think we had over 1,000 automakers, you know, and it whittles down. So I think we may see more consolidation or more collaboration amongst some of the OEMs, and meaning some of the really small players might get swallowed up, perhaps a lot of them over in China. But even when you saw the Volkswagen and Rivian announcement, you see where they're starting to realize that collaboration in some areas is actually good for, you know, the rising tide helps all ships. And of course, we may see a few, like we saw with Fisker filing for bankruptcy. Some of them will go away from the market, and that's okay. That's the speed of competition, right?
Erin, I'll get you out of this. You know, we talked about EVs. I also want to know what's going on with trucks, Erin, broadly. I mean, what are the trends and themes you're seeing there?
So broadly, I mean, trucks still make up a majority of our sales, but we are seeing that the smaller compact SUVs, compact trucks, and of course, sedans are starting to have a little bit of a renaissance here, where there are a couple, you know, their share is going up just a little bit, but I don't see that we're going to transition to going back where sedans are the primary winner in this market. So trucks are doing okay. They are stabilized, but we are seeing that the lower cost vehicles, which tend to be the smaller vehicles, are certainly pushing up in sales. And again, that comes back to the affordability challenge that we're seeing in the market, that if they need a car, they need four wheels, they'll take what they can get. And if that happens to be a little bit smaller than they anticipated or wanted, then that's what they'll grab for the new or used car.
And we will leave it there. Erin Keating, thank you.
Sure, no problem.